Thank you all for showing up this evening for my inauguration as president of the Richmond Academy of Medicine. My name is Deborah Barron, or as I say, as an anesthesiologist at the VA, as I introduce myself to the veterans, I'm Dr. Barron, easy to remember, like the World War I German fighter ace, the Red Baron, or the frozen pizza. I'm incredibly honored that each of you has taken the time to come here tonight to hear about my future goals for the Academy. Before I start my presentation, though, and about our hopes for our organization, I would like to thank Dr. Owen Brody, who escorted me to the podium tonight. Dr. Brody was recognized at last year's Medical Society of Virginia meeting for his active participation in organized medicine for over 50 years. So could we please take a moment and applaud Dr. Brody? Because you truly are an inspiration to each and every one of us. Thank you again, Dr. Brody. I love history, all types of history, military histories, medical histories, and personal and family histories. I love history because the Greek word history actually means inquiry and investigation. And history is something you must understand because it is not about the past. It is about the way we view and understand the present. With this history in mind, bias in mind, I first thought about this year, 2026, which is the sesquicentennial of the founding of our country, a quarter of a millennium ago. Our nation was founded by our fathers who pledged to each other their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. The next thing I did was to look at what happened exactly on this day, and it is noteworthy that 65 years ago, John F. Kennedy gave his inauguration speech. It is a speech unforgettable in its eloquence and its powerful call to public service. With the memorable line, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." I was born 2 weeks after his assassination, and I've always felt a special kinship to JFK. And with my mother being a staunch Democrat, I would have been JFB, John Fitzgerald Barron, had I been a boy. My father, a committed Republican who had voted for Nixon, was overjoyed that I was a girl. But truly, he preferred the beautiful actress Deborah over either Kennedy or Nixon, thus explaining why I am a Deborah. Finally, I researched the history of the Richmond Academy of Medicine, which was established in 1820. And I discovered this, which I absolutely love. Quote, at candlelight, on the third Saturday of each month, physicians gathered to fight rampant quackery and epidemics of smallpox, influenza, and yellow fever. Some 200 years later, we are still an academy of physicians gathering on a regular basis, combating misinformation, disinformation, and deadly infections. So as one of our famous Southern writers, William Faulkner, wrote, "The past is never dead. In fact, the past is not even the past." But of particular interest in history to me are narratives, the stories that give the context and the feel of the facts. To say that the king died and then the queen died are facts. But to say the king died and then the queen died of a broken heart is a story. People remember stories rather than facts, and I hope that as you understand my personal narrative, it will become clear what my hopes and dreams for the Academy are over the next 2 years will be. According to my grandparents, I was a healer before I was even born. My mom had been the teaching case for lupus at a major teaching hospital in New York City. She remembered groups of doctors rounding on her every day to discuss her disease, particularly the malar rash. The very smart doctors informed her that the immunosuppressive effects of pregnancy could significantly improve her condition, and it worked. I was born, my mom got substantially improved, and thus became the narrative that I should be a doctor. But honestly, for as long as I can remember, I had wanted to be a physician. My pediatrician growing up was a figure that Hollywood could have created, a smart, European-educated woman who was diligent, attentive, and all knowledgeable. We were thankful she had accepted us to be her patients. Dr. Barbara would meet with you first to ask questions. Then you would go into the examination room for the physical exam. She would note things on her clipboard, and then you would get dressed and go into the consultation room to sit on comfortable chairs and discuss your health. The strongest impression to this day was the imperceptible expansion of time. I never remember her making you feel rushed. You could ask any question, and she would sit with you and answer for as long as it took. No doubt, some of this is my childhood memory, but I'm sure any physician today would dream of having a practice like this, and most importantly, the time to practice like this. How did we go from that to today, where many physicians are burning out during their practice years, even during their training, and choosing to retire or leave the field early? More importantly, how do we make it better for each other in our field and for our patients and for our community? For tonight's presentation, I would like to concentrate on 3 points: physician identity, harnessing AI for physician and patient benefit, and active RAM participation and advocacy. First, I believe we must reestablish that being a physician is an identity that we can proudly claim. Not that MD has ever stood for medical deity, but physicians as patient advocates, healers, and trusted confidants. For those outside the medical field, a doctor is a doctor. But think of it. The last time someone asked you what you did you say physician or medical doctor? Or did you say gastroenterologist, surgeon, cardiologist, or OBGYN? We are each far more active in our specialty society groups and memberships, which is understandable. There is only so much time, and to keep up in your respective fields feels like a full-time endeavor. However, identifying yourself as a physician and as a medical doctor first and foremost improves the standing not only of yourself, but of all doctors. By first identifying as a physician, it reflects a crucial belonging, a purpose, and a shared identity to the world. What is currently the most trusted profession, according to Gallup polls for the last 24 years? Nursing. Think of it. Most nurses will always immediately identify themselves as a nurse, no matter what their current role. Nurse navigators, nurse anesthetists, nurse practitioners, nurse midwives. They all identify with the larger group, nursing. We can learn a great deal from our nursing colleagues about maintaining a strong professional identity. And it is a professional identity that we should be proud to claim. Every culture around the world values its healers, and we must proudly reclaim the medical physician title. We are the current disciples in a field that reaches back to Hippocrates. It is our duty to maintain this continuity with those that came before us and to preserve its promise for those who will come after us. Our Western medicine is based on clinical observation, a rational approach to disease, and crucially, medical ethics, including confidentiality. In medicine, patients will tell you things that they would not even tell their own spouse. I remember as a third-year medical student, having a patient ask me if he told me something, whether I could tell anybody. I told him I was just a medical student and I hadn't taken the Hippocratic Oath yet, but I would still feel ethically bound to keep his disclosure confidential. He was an 80-year-old man living in a Bronx nursing home, and we were alone in the examination room. He pulled his chair closer to me, looked around to make sure that we were not overheard, and he whispered, "I'm gay. I was married, I have children and grandchildren, and I've never told that to another living soul. But before I die, I wanted to tell somebody." So when I say it is a privilege, it is noteworthy, but it really is a sacred privilege. And it is noteworthy that we apply for hospital privileges not for permission to work at a hospital, but because it is a privilege to provide care to our patients. Medicine applies rigorous scientific application to the problem and scrupulously analyzes the results. I have always noted this as a significant difference between medicine and law. For comparison, the law approaches legal issues by starting to look at an existing model, a precedent, and then fitting those facts into the framework, whereas medicine begins with the facts and uses them to determine the best possible response. The sheer nature of medical training obligates assessment, reassessment, and self-correction. We have not always gotten it right in medicine. The four humors, the wandering uterus causing hysteria, the miasma theory, bloodletting, and the lack of hygiene practices come to mind as failures. But we did learn, correct, which is crucial. We are always evolving with new best practices. And it is a challenging field, mandating years of rigorous training, which can be exhaustive, with responsibilities that can have literal life or death consequences. I do recognize that keeping up in your field is a lifetime commitment, so you can offer the best care. But I have also kept in mind, probably because my dad was first a Marine on the front lines in Korea and then a New York City cop, that as challenging as my life would be, I would not be walking a beat alone in the middle of a rainy night with someone possibly wanting to harm me. So I am blessed. And so we all know in life, perspective is everything. So do we deserve respect for choosing this demanding, humbling, interesting field of study? The answer is yes. To be a physician is to be a member of a noble profession. Please, let's own it. My second point this evening is our current concerns with AI. Only recently, Dr. Woo-Joon Kim taught us all about generative AI at our last general membership meeting. It's incredible how much it's evolved in a few short years. And within the next few, AI is going to evolve even more. And if we do not offer our perspective and input at this point, we will miss out. If we do not include ourselves at that discussion, someone else will decide it for us. How well does that normally work out? Will this be artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence? Will these tools assist us in our ability to care for our patients, or will they replace us? These concerns are real. We can either be at the table discussing it, or we can be on the menu. This year, Utah became the first state to allow AI to write drug prescriptions. I would submit that if a drug needs a prescription, then you should have an interaction with a doctor. Does the patient still need this medicine? Is it the correct dosage? Are they taking it correctly? Have they developed any side effects? I was once doing a final review before going to the OR, and I asked the patient if he had finished his prep. He assured me he had. When I asked if he had experienced any symptoms since taking that morning's rectal suppository, he said no, but he'd had to take a little water with it since it was so waxy. I realized that he had swallowed the suppository. Yep, he had swallowed it. Yep. So I was very glad I had reviewed it with him. Bottom line, and no pun was intended, it is clear to me in a world with access to both vast and fast amounts of knowledge via Google and Meta, patients will still want to have access to human physicians who will help them interpret the results and be with them throughout their care. This is the picture of the doctor from 1891. 70 years, the Richmond Academy was already up and going. And it shows a doctor at a sick child's bedside with anxious parents in the background. It symbolized the helplessness and hopelessness before antibiotics. Doctors could diagnose what was wrong, but they couldn't do anything about it, and the disease would run its course. I actually had a print of this at my apartment during my internship because it resonated with me. I remembered thinking that I was the 20th century equivalent of this doctor with my HIV-positive patients. We only had AZT and DDI, which really did very little, so I spent a fair amount of time in my internship sitting with patients who were headed towards death, much like the doctor in the picture. At that time, every patient who had HIV was dying. I knew it, and they knew it. But what became clear to me were the only things your patient really wanted from you was honesty and time. You could help heal them without curing them because their deepest fear was abandonment or being minimized or forgotten. So never confuse diagnosis and treatment as the end of your patient-doctor relationship. I truly hope that AI will be a pathwork to allow us more time with patients by decreasing paperwork and speeding approvals. Either way, AI is a fact of healthcare. We must continue to be integral in the development and rollout of these technologies to allow them to assist us in healthcare. Garbage in and garbage out is a long-time computer adage. Technology without validation or information without interpretation is often wrong and potentially catastrophic. We in organized medicine have grown to meet our patients' needs. Our current developments include the fields of hospitalists, concierge medicine, and direct primary care. These developments are encouraging to me because even with AI's growing presence in our professional life, they demonstrate that patients value more time with their physicians at each interaction, not less. and the physicians in these fields express improved satisfaction with their chosen profession. Patients want to feel like they have a relationship with their physician and that their physician will be on their side, even if it's just for the duration of a hospital encounter. Concierge and direct patient care medicine confirm that this patient-physician relationship is valued and that people are willing to pay for access to it. Never, ever confuse profusion of data with interpretation and understanding. George Bernard Shaw said the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place, which is almost where we are with AI today. Again, AI's robust access to data is indeed impressive, and the breadth of its knowledge span is vast. But I still maintain that since a human is to be the end receiver of this knowledge, patients now more than ever will need a human to filter the onslaught of data. We are not gatekeepers of the knowledge, but rather the lens to interpret it. And the most important job of a physician is to be human in a human connection. AI will never be able to replace your presence when you have to share information with your patient. Never, full stop. My hope is that the Academy can be a forum for clinicians discussing the best practices of AI for use in the medical field. By glowing computer screen rather than by candlelight, our current generation of physicians can carry on the pragmatic tradition of our Academy forebears, sharing with one another to help how to grow and harness a tool that is already defining the future of medicine. Thirdly, we must be involved in active advocacy for ourselves and our patients. Our perspective is critically important to forming healthcare policy. Indeed, public health was founded by a physician, Dr. John Snow, whose pioneering work traced the 1854 cholera outbreak in London to one contaminated water pump. Therefore, one of our forebearers, a physician, was the father of epidemiology and public health. Let me be clear, I do not attribute malintent to non-healthcare providers, but I do feel our voice at the table is critical because I know that active involvement and advocacy works because I saw it work early in my career. As I told you, my internship deeply affected me. At that time, there was no such thing as protection of medical records. I remember clearly stating to my patients that I could indeed draw their blood at the hospital, but the results would go into their records, which were accessible to multiple entities. Or they could walk 10 blocks down to the West Village and get anonymous, confidential testing. Our current patient privacy rules have changed because of coordinated and energetic advocacy. What worked to change this scenario? Motivated patients and physicians. I know a motivated, empowered focus group can change public policy and the world. I know it because I saw it. If you want to understand how public advocacy can change the world, look at the results of ACT UP in the 1990s, a coalition who advocated for the expanse of knowledge of HIV-positive patients, including changing public policy for more funding, faster drug access, and expanded clinical trials. I remain personally optimistic about the future of medicine, overall and specifically here in Virginia. In the past year, there have been increased numbers of applications to medical schools. I would like to think this is because many students appreciated the critical role of physicians during our recent COVID crisis, and because we do have something to be proud of on how we performed during that pandemic. Many students are choosing this field even with the vast amount of debt they are taking on. I would like Virginia to stop being a net exporter of new physicians. I hope that when students come to our beautiful Commonwealth, they will stay. And if they stay, I hope it is because the current academy provides a robust medical community that helps them with job placement and supportive, congenial environment. I love our town and gown colleagues. This is Tip O'Neill, the legendary congressman from Massachusetts for over 40 years. He was Speaker of the House for 10 years and is often associated with the expression, all politics is local. Full disclosure, I had his permission to tell people I cared for him, and I remember asking him that if this quote was always true. He looked me in the eye and he said, "It is one of the few things in politics that is always true. You show up for the people who cared enough to show up. So when we have 100 physicians attend legislative days rather than 10, you can bet dollars to donuts it is noted by our legislators." You have to speak up with your patients to the government, not because we know everything, but because we do know more than our legislators know about what our patients need. Relentless pleasantness is a true and time-honored tactic. Finally, this is a picture of me from college. I was on the fencing team. Notice that I don't say I fenced because I was terrible. Honestly, this is not false modesty or a humble brag. I looked like Hagar the Horrible with a sword or a Viking berserker. Truly, no elegance. But it was interesting to learn this sport, which many had called the physical game of chess, and my housemate Kip and I figured that it might help us in our applications to grad schools. We joked that we were like the bad news bears of college. Unexpectedly, in my junior year, lightning struck in the form of a truly unexpected addition to the team. Sharon Montplaisir, a bona fide U.S. Olympian who had decided to join a Division III athletic school. It goes without saying that there were many prestigious schools, Division I, who wanted her. She walked onto our team with one of the most beautiful smiles I had ever seen and a determination to pursue college on her terms, pursuing academic studies, plus a modeling career in New York City. The next year, maybe because of word of what Sharon had done, the national Puerto Rican champion, Blanca, joined our team. Talk about anomalies. Two Olympians who had decided to join us on a Division III school. Many of you have children and know how competitive Division I athletics are. Thus, to have two Olympians on a Division III school allowed us to have a radically different experience in college athletics. Sharon was the captain of the team, and she is one of the people who really helped set my standard for what a leader should be. What I remember is how Sharon spent time with us individually to tell us why she was thankful to have us on the team. I truly remember thinking, is this a joke? Why was she happy I was there? I could have starred in a cautionary tale of don't end up like this. Sharon smiled and stated what she appreciated about me were two things. One, I helped bring up the team's GPA average. No explanation is required about pre-meds in undergraduate programs. And two, I always showed up, whether it was practices or weekend tournaments. She knew I had made this commitment and I would always be there. She also knew it only worked if the team showed up. We had come dangerously close several times at tournaments to having to forfeit because we didn't have the minimum required people of team members. So she knew that no matter how phenomenal she and Blanca were, and they were, we needed everyone on the team. I always appreciate an honest assessment. I knew she meant those two items about me because she was an honest woman, and she never once mentioned any athletic ability. This is my pledge to RAM tonight. I and the rest of the board, Jonathan as vice president, Lydia as secretary, and Mark as treasurer, will always show up. But we cannot do it alone. We have almost 2,000 members in this organization, and we need your active participation on all aspects of RAM. We need you to join with us on RAM Legislative Days. Put it on your calendar tonight. The dates are February 4th and February 25th. We need you to join our ranks to speak with legislators. If you don't think you know enough, we have a cheat sheet. We have experienced RAM members who will guide you through the process. In fact, that is how I first met Dr. Brody. We were buddies for lobby days. Most of our RAM members live in Richmond area, so it is literally a short drive to the Capitol and our legislators. Here at RAM, we have family days because we know how precious family time is. We have the independent physicians group for those of you who have had the courage to maintain your private practice. We have the young physicians, right, for you young things who are nearer the beginning of your careers than the end. And we have the Women in Focus group, self-explanatory. If there is something that you want us to work on, please tell us. I will share my contact information with you in the forthcoming RAM publications. It goes without saying that I want to thank Tovia, Sid, and Carolyn Burns, and all the other RAM officers who have set the bar for leadership of this organization quite high. I truly hope not to disappoint. Our staff at RAM office, Jim, Laura, Amy, Scott, and Sue, are incredible, and they will work with us enthusiastically, unflaggingly, and with great diligence. I want to thank the two people I consulted with before I decided to become president. My husband, Dave, and my daughter, Jacqueline. See, the Kennedy vibe still persists. Dave, you are my partner in everything. Thank you for being you and for always making me laugh. You are my greatest fan and my gentlest critic, and you have been since 1990. Jacqueline, you became a nurse knowing what healthcare was, and I could not be prouder. You are everything I dreamed of in a daughter. If I died tomorrow and the only thing I was remembered for was being your mom, that would be way more than enough. In summary, thank you for your attention. We must reclaim physician identity. We must remember that AI cannot replace us, but it can be a friend and a useful tool going forward. And finally, we owe it to our patients and colleagues to be actively involved in advocacy for them and for each other. For those given much, much will be expected, and each of us has been given much by this noble profession. I could not end this presentation without a nod again to history and the fact that this is 2026. It's from one of my favorite movies, National Treasure, where we revisit the Declaration of Independence. I love that line. When something is wrong, those with the ability to take action have the responsibility to take action. We have the ability to take action, and thus we have the responsibility to take action. RAM has never been more important. We owe it to our patients, our present and future colleagues, and our community. Thank you again for your time this evening. Thank you. Thank you. Honestly, thank you.